You always play outsiders with very little need for male context or male involvement. And I was like, well, how much do I pay you for this very short, slightly odd therapy session? I'm Zawe Ashton, but just think of me as, I don't know, the promising new love interest to your hapless romantic lead. You're standing by yourself at that intimidating house party. I get the reference on your obscure band t-shirt. We click. So Random Acts is a late night Channel 4 show which celebrates the experimental when it comes to short form film. This is its third series. It's my first time ever hosting the show and my first time ever hosting full stop, which is why I'm now drawn to the centre of the camera. I really wanted to get involved because it was a really interesting time when I was approached by Channel 4 and by Random Acts to do it, because I was also kind of very much in the midst of having just finished my own short film. I've been directing and writing simultaneously for a little while now, and it just felt like I could have a unique perspective in terms of hosting the show and hosting lots of other terrified filmmakers and holding my own hand and holding their hand a bit as well, and hopefully holding the hand of the audience all at the same time. Yeah, I have a lot of respect now for presenters. I had respect for them before, but I think especially when you're hosting something that is a film show, whereby you're having to kind of be the person that is comforting the viewer in between what is quite genuinely edgy and experimental work, that was a tone that had to be like really nailed, and I don't know if anyone else has ever tried to play the game, find your presenting persona, but that's the game that I've just been playing with myself. And you don't know what your persona is going to be until you start speaking down the lens. And I seem to have a situation whereby the more passionate I am about stuff, the more sarcastic my voice sounds. So it's kind of like the vocal version of resting bitch face. So that's not useful, but what was really easy is the fact that I had felt so drawn to and so impressed by all of the material in the lineup that you could always find a sort of a personal connection, which made writing those links, which are very difficult, much easier. What attracts me to a role? It changes all the time. But it's interesting when you are so unaware of what you're doing, or when you're working from a very instinctive place and then suddenly an outside voice goes, oh, well, I think this is what you're drawn to, or this is what you like. A bit like going through your whole life and then suddenly starting therapy and you're like, oh my God, really? Oh, wow. I thought I was just kind of being me, but there's so many other subliminal, subconscious mechanisms that are driving you at all times, right? So it was interesting. I did a play by the brilliant writer Abby Morgan a couple of years ago at the Donmar, and that was an all-female four-hander, and my character was sort of the character that was very much the outsider, which is the word that she used, and she said in rehearsals at one point, she went, well, you always play outsiders, don't you? And I'd never heard someone sort of say it to me like that before. And she went, you always play outsiders with very little need for male context or male involvement. And I was like, well, how much do I pay you for this very short, slightly odd therapy session? But it was so lovely to hear her say that, because it does make you think about that pattern that is emerging in your work, and the pattern that's emerging in what you choose. I like the little guys, I like the weirdos, I like the freaks. They're the people I'm always attracted to, and the artists I'm always attracted to. People with a level of duality, people with a level of complexity, ones that you need to have a second look to really understand, has just always been my thing. It still surprises me how much people want to talk about VOD. and it surprises me and delights me at the same time. It's interesting that that's the character I'm being asked about, because it's probably the one character in definitely in my televisual career that came so much from instinct that it's actually really hard to talk about. I had such a little amount of time in which to create her that it just had to come from pure instinct and pure subconscious, again, kind of psychological stuff that's not tapped often. It just took all of that to come through, and so the fact that you are sometimes in a position where you can really put your truth out there, and that's what the position I was in with Vod and my interpretation of that character, the fact that that has been embraced, like honestly it still like gives me goosebumps now, because you hardly ever get those two things together. You hardly ever get to go, this is me, this is a truth that I feel about this character, it's potentially going to be crazy. Why am I speaking like this? Why am I walking like this? Why am I deciding to make all these different decisions? But then to have that interpretation embraced is like it's a special thing. Yeah, I miss her a lot. You hardly ever get the opportunity to embody, well, I don't, as a sort of a slightly anxious, overthinking person. You hardly ever get the chance to embody someone who just gives none of the fucks. And that's very therapeutic. And doing that for 5 years, I think, was probably very good for my soul. It's increasingly important to me to feel like I have some kind of agency within the industry that I've worked for a long time. I really like the phrase, the lunatics are always going to want a chance to run the asylum. I've butchered that phrase, but that's essentially the gist of it. And so setting up this production company, Asylum, was a mixture of I'm a woman, I'm an artist, I am a woman of colour, I am a tall woman, I am a woman who likes the stranger things in life and the stranger things in my work. So when you are made up of potentially lots of different elements that make you not the most commercial entity thing in the world, and you want to have agency and you want to have longevity, you make your own company when you can, and you work out ways to have the agency that you want in your career, because you want it to last a long time, and I would like mine to last a long time, because I don't believe there is a glass ceiling in terms of age or gender in this business, and maybe I can sort of walk that walk and talk that talk at the same time. That would be ideal.